Hello, everybody, and welcome to No Signals special broadcast for Drone Day 2026. Today's the International Day of Drone, and we don't mean the kind that are used for extrajudicial killings around the world. We mean long, slow, suspended notes that you really can't dance to. So if you're here for the dancing, I don't know what to tell you. I'm very happy. My name's Corlein Ada Emke. I'm a musician living in Chicago, mainly record, occasionally perform, and I used to live stream a lot during the dark days of the early 2020s, and haven't been able to do it for a while. Normally on Drone Day, I would drive to upstate New York for this wonderful drone festival up in the mountains of the Hudson Valley. But I live in a fascist country where it's no longer safe for me to travel. So instead, I'm coming to you live from the internet over a VPN connection from an undisclosed location. I am so happy today that I have a friend with me. This is Kevin B. Chatham, longtime friend, legendary Chicago filmmaker, and bass player extraordinaire. And this is going to be Kevin's first Drone Day performance, which I'm excited about. What do you think, Kevin?
I am very excited too. It'll be fun to drone with instruments instead of just words for a change. So this will be a joyous departure.
Awesome. Well, we have 4 pieces lined up for you today. We're going to start with, I said on Mastodon, "Come for the coffee and stay for the anti-fascist anthem," and I meant that. We're going to start with a song I call "Perfection in a Cup." I do a lot of plunderphonics inspired by the folks at Negative Land, who are my gods and heroes, and I end up pulling a lot of audio off the Internet Archive from old films and public domain movies and so on. And what you're going to hear is actually from one of those. So we're going to have four pieces, and right in the middle we're going to have one of Kevin's short films debuting on Twitch for the first time, I believe. So without further ado, we're going to go into Perfection in a Cup.
Perfection in a coffee cup. 3 simple ingredients go into the brewing process: water, coffee, time. Care will produce a perfect result every time. Water. Into 100,000 pots an hour, water flows in the coffee-making process. Water. Too much or too little? Boiled first or later? Or not at all? For how long? And yet, there is only one correct way. Water, the first element, carefully measured, clean and cold. 3/4 of a measuring cup for each cup of coffee, then brought to a full boil. Perfection in a coffee cup. Coffee. The second element. Your favorite blend. The proper grind for your coffee maker. One level CBI measure per cup. The boiling water now passes over the coffee, and the brewing process begins. The flame is lowered, and, well, watch. The third element is time, and it too must be measured accurately. The minutes counted. The flavor will emerge as the process continues. The taste of coffee heightens and increases until all that is good has been extracted. In this method of brewing, percolator, 6 to 8 minutes over gentle heat, and then the liquid is coffee. From these grounds, there remains nothing more to gain but bitterness. No amount of cooking can extract another ounce of good taste, not another iota of good flavor. In the drip method, the coffee is measured and placed in the pot. The water, carefully pre-measured and brought to a full boil, is poured, still boiling, over the coffee. The time? It should take only 4 to 6 minutes. In the vacuum method, the coffee is carefully measured into the top bowl. The water is brought to a full boil before the brewing process is allowed to begin. The time? Not more than 3 minutes after the water and coffee are in contact. Stir gently during the brewing process and lower the heat. That's all there is. Like all good secrets, its simplicity is its magic. The incomparable goodness of coffee has now been captured in a cup. It has substance, a body to go with its aroma and its taste. When prepared this way, it will be perfect every time. Three magic ingredients. Water, fresh and carefully measured. Coffee, the proper grind and carefully measured. Time, carefully measured. A simple recipe for perfect coffee. Perfect coffee, sending its glow into our lives around the clock. It helps us start the day with warmth and vigor. It is a pleasant spur to the morning's work. It provides the essential part of our pause at noon, indispensable during that unhurried hour in a world that often forgets to stop. In the romance of evening, when young dreams glow softly, coffee is always a perfect companion. and after dinner. It is at home in any setting when good taste is important. In the end, it remains a simple thing, easy to attain, well made and well enjoyed. A good cup of good coffee. Perfection in a coffee cup.
Wow. That was fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I hope y'all are enjoying this. I don't know if drone is kind of a weird little subgenre. A lot of folks who are into modular synthesis really enjoy drone because there's so few notes. But I try to. So drone is really about texture. It's about timbre. It's about
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. Yeah. It's very hard to just stay on a single note for that long, and hopefully make it interesting. So I mentioned at the top of the program that my colleague here today, Kevin, is I called you a legendary Chicago filmmaker, I believe. You've been making films for a long time.
I mean, technically 30 some years, so I guess that counts as a long time.
And people who know me maybe know that I participate in a weekly creative prompt project, musical creative prompt project led by Mark Weidenbaum called Disquiet Hunto. And we have a different creative prompt every week, and we have 4 days to turn it into an original piece of music. Now, Kevin, you do something similar, but with film.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, so for the past 15 or so years, I've been involved with a group of filmmakers called Group 312 Films, where similar to the way your music group works, we get together once a month. Every month, everybody who made a film shows the film that they made. We all watch. Then everybody who made a film nominates themes. Then everybody in the group votes until only one theme remains. Then everybody splits up and each person makes a new film inspired by that month's theme. Then at the beginning of the next month, everybody shows the film that they made. Everybody who made a film nominates a theme. We all vote, and then we do this again for the next month. So theoretically, everybody in the group, if they're participating all year round, should make 12 films, which is something nobody does. But as a result of the process, a lot of people are forced to work fast. You're forced to be creative quickly, which results in a lot of interesting experimentation. And you kind of get to see how each artist interprets that month's theme. So last month's theme was, I think, trash. And we had, half a dozen films all inspired by trash, but each wildly different. Some narrative, some, very, very experimental, some comedic. And it's a pretty good group. Everybody's very supportive of each other. And then, sorry, I could talk about this for a long time. Speaking of droning, at least once a year, we put together an annual best of screening, which we call our annual report. And this year's annual report is scheduled to happen on August 29th at Chicago Filmmakers, which is a theater in the north side of Chicago that primarily focuses on indie films. And so we hope that if anybody who's listening is enjoying this music, you probably enjoy half of the films that are in the annual report. At least half of the filmmakers are musicians and do a lot of experimental stuff, both sonically as well as video-wise.
Sure.
So I highly recommend taking a look at group312.com. And from there you can find out about all of the screenings that we have coming up, which includes the annual report that I just mentioned. And then we've got 4 screenings happening in Hanover, Germany at the end of June.
Awesome.
That's this month, right? Are we in June?
Next month. We're
next
May.
month. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next
Almost
month.
in June.
So yeah, at the end of next month, we're having 4 screenings in June. That I would welcome anybody who happens to live in or around Germany to swing by, say hi. And I think did I fill my time slot yet?
30 seconds. No, we're good. So tell us about this the short film we're going to be watching today.
So the one we're about to see is one that I did about 15 years ago. I do think the theme actually was the title of the movie, which in this case, the theme was The Good Line, or A Good Line. And for it, I interpreted a story about an artist. What was that?
Don't give it away.
Oh, all right. I'll let you find out what happens.
All right.
So
Perfect Line?
this was my Good Line film.
Beautiful. Let's see.
When Oslo Vander Wallace's The Good Line number 278 was presented at the Guggenheim Museum in Sweden last month, there was little background presented about this great work. The family members who had opened his studio a month after his last reported phone conversation simply assumed that this work, the last in the numbered series, must have been as close to his desired vision as possible. However, after the local investigation bureau turned over his journals and notebooks to the family, a deeper understanding of the work was established. Inspiration began while Vander Wallace was viewing a midnight screening of Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire. Peter Falk, playing Peter Falk, delivers a throwaway line while sketching a portrait of an extra on the film he is acting in. "That's a good line," he says to himself. This started Vander Wallace thinking about what constituted a good line, and so his quest began. But more interesting than the final product and the reactions and ramifications it has stirred are the motivations behind the rejection of the 277 other attempts. Taking cues from the film, he started using a standard number 2 pencil on sketch paper. However, after 20 attempts, this technique was rejected, simply citing the impermanence and weakness of graphite in his journal. For line number 21, Vander Wallace returns to the medium he knows best, and begins to work with paints. He started simply with a standard 20 by 30 inch canvas, using a basic round brush and solid black acrylic paint, Van Gogh Catalog number 45, Mars Black. Vander Wallace's diary notes that he rejected the early attempts based solely on instinct. The process was to simply approach the canvas and try to draw the best line he could, then to reflect on the piece and try to determine if and how it could be improved. After completing work number 43, Vander Wallace notes that he can see the weakness of his own technique in the line. Examination reveals hesitations and uncertainty. He decides that his painterly technique is not adequate to create the line for which he is striving. At this point, Vander Wallace begins to study Japanese calligraphy. The study becomes fairly intense. As those who knew Vander Wallace could attest, this is typical of the artist. His obsessive focus is well known in his circle of friends. While he does produce a lot of calligraphy, he abstains from working on the line project during this time period due to his own impurity. After a massively productive period resulting in 43 paintings in less than 2 weeks, Vander Wallace discovers that paint is inadequate for this work. Upon close scrutiny, he realizes that paint does not produce a single line, but rather a collection of overlapping and interwoven lines. In disgust, Vander Wallace throws all his paints and brushes into the furnace. After much scrutiny, Vander Wallace concluded that ink was the best medium for the project due to its permanence, solidity, and depth of hue. After 3 months and 27 new attempts, Vander Wallace notes in his journal that he felt that the problem was not only a weakness in his technique, but indicative of a general weakness in his own body. His balance is off and prevents him from being capable of moving in the perfect way necessary to draw such a line. So, Vander Wallace begins to study both yoga and Zen. By the time he had completed line 164, the curves of the line began to resemble the curves of a woman the artist had loved, but she had left him. As perfect as the artist may have considered her, the fact that she left indicates that there was no perfection there. After drawing number 184, Vander Wallace began to think that the problem was with a weakness in his own body. He began to trace various parts of his body in an attempt to find the flaws. These sketches fill over 30 pages in his journal, but it appears that none of them became any part of the actual numbered series. It is mentioned now only to explain the following shift in his work. Starting with drawing number 185, Vander Wallace began to try to find lines in other great works of art. Line number 185 begins with the first tracing of the notes from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. That resulted in 13 rejected works. For line number 199, he began tracing parts of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. This resulted in 24 rejected works. This strategy continues for 67 more drawings, taking inspiration from sources as wide-ranging as Michelangelo's David, the Taj Mahal, and the Pacific Coast Highway. According to the notebooks, line number 214 was deemed obscene. van der Waals notes that line number 232 was childish and immature. Line 255 was considered to be van der Waals' greatest failure. As such, he has destroyed the original drawing and it is missing from the set. In his journal, van der Waals rejects line 262 as being too historical. Drawing number 256 notes a new revelation for van der Waals. He deduces that the problem with all his lines is that they are not based on the present, but on his past. Each line he has drawn thus far is based on the influence of his experiences, so in order to attempt to bring the drawings into the present, he decides that he must actually live each line. He begins to take walks and use these travels as sources for his lines, mapping his journey onto each blank page. Drawing number 262 is taken from his trip around North Aberlane. Drawing number 265 resulted from the artist wandering for a day in a cornfield outside of Kankakee. However, each of these is still rejected. After finishing drawing number 277, van der Waals writes in his journal, "In a moment of absolute depression, I looked back at all the works, at all the failures I had made, and I realized the problem was not with the lines themselves, but with my method of looking at them. Each line I drew was only a segment, a small portion of a greater whole. The problem with my work was that it was being viewed in pieces. Unable to see the whole of the project, I was unable to recognize the continuation of the action. The problem was that each of my lines was trapped in a finite space and time by the paper and ink I was using to capture it. Perfection cannot be limited in such a way. It extends beyond that. In order to create something truly perfect, I too must be able to extend myself. I have an idea." This is the last note in his journals.
So that piece is called the Lakeshore Drive Incident, and I spoke about this Quiet Junto a little earlier on tonight, and that was actually the result of one of the prompts. It was the first Quiet Junto musical response that I made on the road. I was actually in Manchester with nothing more than a miniature little keyboard and a lot of software synthesizers loaded up on my laptop. And I had a nice field recording of some seagulls, and I found some hard drive spin up and click sound effects to make a nice little rhythm track out of, and imagined some sort of incident with a hard drive going terribly, terribly wrong on the most famous road in Chicago, next to the Miracle Mile. So it was fun. How are you feeling, Kevin?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Are you up for one more?
You told me there wouldn't be any encores.
Oh, there won't be. Trust me. All right.
I am raring to go.
Okay. So for our last piece, I promised a little bit of anti-fascism. So I mentioned that I like plundering public domain audio from the Internet Archive, and one of my most recent finds was a whole collection of short films. These were originally film strips put out by Encyclopedia Britannica. So in the olden days, before Wikipedia, you had Wikipedia came in book form, and there were about 12 volumes of them, and they were written by scholars instead of randos on the internet. Encyclopedia Britannica made a lot of educational materials, including these film strips. But one film strip in particular that I found really stood out. It's from 1949. Again, this is made in the UK. This is the post-World War II era, when Europe is trying to rebuild and claw its way out of its latest clash with fascism. And the United States is making a lot of noise about how helpful it's being in establishing itself as a world power and establishing dominance over Europe. And not everyone in Europe saw the Marshall Plan quite in the way that we did. Anyway, this next piece is called Despotism.
You can roughly locate any community in the world, somewhere along a scale running all the way from democracy to despotism. Let's find out about despotism. This man makes it his job to study these things.
Well, for one thing, avoid the comfortable idea that the mere form of government can of itself safeguard a nation against despotism. Germany, under President Hindenburg, was a republic. And yet in this republic, an aggressive despotism took root and flourished under Adolf Hitler. When a competent observer looks for signs of despotism in a community, he looks beyond fine words and noble phrases.
One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Many observers have found that two workable yardsticks help in discovering how near a community is to despotism: the respect scale and the power scale.
A careful observer can use a respect scale to find how many citizens get an even break. As a community moves towards despotism, respect is restricted to fewer people. A community is low on a respect scale if common courtesy is withheld from large groups of people on account of their political attitude. If people are rude to others because they think their wealth and position gives them that right, or because they don't like a man's race or his religion. Equal opportunity for all citizens to develop useful skills is one basis for rating a community on a respect scale. The opportunity to develop useful skills is important, but not enough. The equally important opportunity to put skills to use is a further test on a respect scale. A power scale is another important yardstick of despotism. It gauges the citizens' share in making the community's decisions. Communities which concentrate decision-making in a few hands rate low on a power scale and are moving towards despotism. Like France under the Bourbon kings, one of whom said, "The state, I am the state." Today, democracy can ebb away in communities whose citizens allow power to become concentrated in the hands of bosses. The test of despotic power is that it can disregard the will of the people. It rules without the consent of the governed. Look beyond the legal formalities of an election in measuring a community on the power scale to see if the ballot is really free. If the citizens can vote only the way they're told, a community approaches despotism. When legislatures become ceremonial assemblies only and have no real control over lawmaking, their community rates low on a power scale. In a downright despotism, opposition is dangerous, whether the despotism is official or whether it is unofficial.
The spread of respect and power in a community is influenced by certain conditions, which many observers measure by means of the economic distribution and information scales.
If a community's economic distribution becomes slanted, its middle-income groups grow smaller, and despotism stands a better chance to gain a foothold. Where land is privately owned, one sign of a poorly balanced economy is the concentration of land ownership in the hands of a very small number of people. To the extent that this condition exists throughout a nation, the likelihood of despotism is increased. In communities which depend almost entirely on a single industry, such as a factory or mine, maintaining economic balance is a challenging problem. If this condition exists over the nation as a whole, so that the control of jobs and business opportunities is in a few hands, despotism stands a good chance. Another sign of a poorly balanced economy is a taxation system that presses heaviest on those least able to pay. A larger part of a small income is spent on necessities such as food. Sales taxes on such necessities hit the small income harder. A community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, and other channels of communication are controlled by only a few people, and when citizens have to accept what they're told. In communities of this kind, despotism stands a good chance.
Young people cannot be trusted to form their own opinion. This business about open-mindedness is nonsense. It's a waste of time trying to teach students to think for themselves. It's our job to tell them.
And when teachers put such training into practice, despotism stands a good chance. These children are being taught to accept uncritically whatever they're told. Questions are not encouraged. And if books and newspapers and the radio are efficiently controlled, the people will read and accept exactly what the few in control want them to. Government censorship is one form of control. A newspaper which breaks the government censorship rule can be suspended. It is also possible for newspapers and other forms of communication to be controlled by private interests. What sort of community do you live in? Where would you place it on a democracy-despotism scale? To find out, you can rate it on a respect scale and a power scale. And to find out what way it is likely to go in the future, you can rate it on economic distribution and information scale. The lower your community rates on economic distribution and information scales, the lower it is likely to rate on respect and power scales, and thus to approach despotism. What happens in a single community is the problem of its own citizens. But it is also the problem of us all, because as communities go, so goes the nation.
Thanks for being here tonight, everybody. I appreciate you. And maybe we'll do this again. What do you think, Kevin?
I think so.
All right. I'll see you all on the internet. Good night, friends.